Well, as many of you know, we're moving. The Center for Mindful Learning's Monastic Academy is in the process now of moving. Not very far, just a short distance, only about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, but it's a big job.
It is.
Turns out to be a big job. Yeah. Put briefly, turns out that we have more than we thought we had. Yes. And that's the subject of this talk. When we meditate and we try to go on a journey, move internally, we often find that we have more than we thought we had. So we've been going through the various rooms, boxes, the various desks, various closets, and there's a lot there that we didn't even, there's a lot there. Some of it, of course, is items. Some of it is potentially useful, but a lot of it is not. A lot of it is been thrown away, but instead was just put into a closet. And other parts are just dirt and dust, things that collected that we didn't even put there. So this is what happens when we become domesticated. I've lived on a couple of Indian reservations, mostly the Navajo reservation, which has more of a history of being domesticated than another one, which is a Lakota reservation. They don't have much of a history of being domesticated at all. Domesticated means that you have a permanent home. They're much more accustomed to being nomads. And I read that back in the day, when they were permitted to live that life, legally permitted and practically permitted, because the colonizers hadn't wiped out the buffalo yet. Nowadays, even buffalo are domesticated. Yes, they're still buffalo, but even they are confined. It's just amazing. You just imagine back a few hundred years ago, a river of buffalo would go across, just keep on going, ground shaking. Buffalo, millions of buffalo traveling, and they'd follow the herds. And some of the people in the tribe had the job of determining where the right place to go would be. Where should we go next? Where will the buffalo be? And other things as well. Of course, you need water, and there may be herbs or other items that are needed. And so some people would determine where the tribe would go and when. So I read that the way it was often done was they would call out in the morning, "We're leaving." This is around daybreak. Then the entire tribe would gather up everything they had, including the teepees their homes, gather up everything and carry it. And apparently this is true. The account I read, they already had horses. This seems to have even been true before they had horses, and they just had dogs and their own muscles to move their camp. But in any case, with the horse, when they had the horse, they would move the entire camp, starting about 6 in the morning, 10 miles or so, and set up camp again. And by noon, meals are being served. It's as if they've been there for 1,000 years, is the way the writer put it. They're just there. This is the new location. So 10 miles is pretty far. I don't know if you've walked 10 miles, but a 10-mile walk is significant. And it's more significant if you're carrying a teepee. And all of your possessions, absolutely everything you're carrying with you. Now, if you're living that lifestyle, there's a great incentive to throw things away, to get rid of stuff, because anything you don't throw away, you have to carry. And something that came up with a certain futon, it's actually my futon, which the residents were debating on what to do with, and I was away at the time, so they couldn't ask me. But the thing that I said about the futon is that the problem with owning something is that you have to have it. If you could not have it, then that would be a lot easier. But if you own something, if you have something, then there's a price you have to pay, is that you have to have it. So we have it. Yes, we have the futon now, even though we don't want it, but we have it. And so when you have it, you have to have it. You have it. And having it is a chore. If we were nomads traveling around needing to walk 10 miles before breakfast with everything, we would not have the futon, right? We would not have carried the futon to Lowell, right? Yeah, hard to say. I'm going to say that I doubt that we would have carried that futon to Lowell. Maybe we had a horse, maybe, but we don't have a horse. So the futon is just one example of the problem with owning things, the problem with possessing things, the problem with attaching to things. Once you have gotten it, then there you are. It's gotten you. And Peace Pilgrim talked about this. Peace Pilgrim discussed this from a few different angles. So one angle that she talked about was that there was a woman who worked really hard, who needed to bring in enough income to have a big house. And Peace Pilgrim asked her, why are you working so hard for this big house? You live here alone. It doesn't seem like you like your job that much. She said, that's true, but I have all of this wonderful furniture. It's great furniture. It's really beautiful furniture. And I need to work in order to have a house that's big enough to take care of the furniture. And the point that Peace Pilgrim made was that it seems as if, from our human perspective, our deluded perspective, it seems as if she owns the furniture, doesn't it? It looks that way. You can look at it and turn your head upside down, and it starts to look as if she owns her furniture. But clearly, it owns her, Peace Pilgrim said. And so you look then from a different angle at Peace Pilgrim herself. She had to carry everything, and so she owned just a few items that she kept in her pockets. She kept some sometimes some paper and stamps in order to send people letters, but in general, just a comb and a toothbrush. And everything else just seemed too heavy. Now, before, when she was preparing, before she was Peace Pilgrim, before she had her final spiritual awakening, and then left home in that way, before that, she was already quite a powerful woman. Some of you know her story. She hiked the Appalachian Trail and a few times, and as she did that, and along with others, hiked in other places, and as she did that, she gradually learned how to have less and less, and that there's a punishment for having things. The punishment is that you have to have them, you have to carry them, and something that weighs 1 pound, if it's sitting in your closet, well, you don't notice that it weighs 1 pound. But if you're carrying it, that 1 pound weighs a lot at around mile, well, 1 really, but certainly mile 10 or 20 or 30 or 40, which is how many miles she would walk in a day. So as she explored the letting go of things, the discarding of possessions, she was also exploring the other side, which is the discarding of views and opinions. And I will say that one of the reasons that it's, of course, one of the reasons it's taking a long time for us to move is because we have a lot of stuff, a lot of items. But another reason that it's taking so long for us to move is that we have a lot of opinions. Different people have very different views on how this move should proceed. Am I right?
What to keep.
What to keep, exactly. What to discard. Where you should put it once you bring it, which order we should bring things in, when should we rent the U-Haul anyway. Oh, we already reserved it. Should we call and cancel it since it doesn't look like we should do it today, but actually we already reserved it, etc., etc. I'm just giving you a sneak peek into the intricacies of moving. Maybe some of you know. They actually say that for the average American, moving is one of the top 3 most stressful things to do, or things that happen in one's life. And it's on the order of divorce. When you're talking about things that happen, we're including things like divorce and losing a loved one. And number 3 is moving. So it's more stressful than getting fired, apparently, according to the way that it's typically measured in the studies that I've seen. So it's very, very difficult. Or having a child. Think about that. Isn't that amazing? I mean, these are the order of stress that we're talking about, and moving is in this group for most of us Americans. A highly domesticated, have a lot of things, and we want things to be a certain way. We think that things should be the way we want them to be. This is one of the most fundamental American convictions. Things should be the way I want them to be. That's how things should be, and moving is a time when it's difficult to achieve that. So so we're dealing with our things, but we're also dealing with our views, with our opinions, with our preferences, and it's quite exhausting. Again, if you contrast that with Peace Pilgrim or with those in the Buddhist path who are homeless, a lot of monks, and those who are fully enlightened are people who live in a homeless way. As Jesus said, the Son of Man, the Savior of the world, has no place to rest his head. The foxes have their dens and the birds their nests, but the Son of Man has no place to rest his head. There's no place where one stops. He journeyed and journeyed and journeyed and then was killed. And this is the this is the way it is. Whether people happen to crucify you or not, you're going to die. And so the way it is in Buddhism is that those who are fully awakened travel and travel and journey, and then die without ever settling. So moving, while it can be very stressful, can also be a great lesson. And in any case, it's a great metaphor for this path, for the inner journey. When we meditate, we're moving. Move. That's the goal of meditation. Move. Take up a new residence somewhere. Get undomesticated from your mind. Mind, move somewhere else. Anywhere else, actually. Just move out. There will be somewhere else that you'll find yourself. But at least get out. Get out of your mind. Move. But turns out it's hard sometimes. Sometimes it's really very difficult. Because it turns out we have a lot of things. The good news is that at a certain point we don't. At a certain point we're Peace Pilgrim and we really don't have things. We can fit all of our physical possessions in our pockets. We can fit all of our mental possessions in, I don't know, whenever it's necessary to have them. Period of time, whatever period of time you'd call that. We have very few mental or emotional possessions. We have very few physical possessions. And so we're free, as she was. Free as air. Free as the wind. Completely free. And we know what it means in the Buddhist tradition when they say, the life lived in a home is crowded and dusty. The homeless life is free as air, free as the wind, open and free. We learn that even if we live in a home, we get a taste of that as we practice, because we begin to let go and we realize that there is not an infinite amount of stuff in our minds. There's not an infinite amount. It's like moving, of course, but you don't have an infinite amount of stuff in your house. It isn't that the closet contains unlimited numbers of useless objects. There's a limited number of useless objects in that closet. And that means that if you just deal with them one by one, then at some point there won't be any left. At some point there won't be any left. And that's awakening. As we dive into that closet, though, we do often notice that there's more junk in there than we thought. And as we descend into our minds, into our direct experience, we often find that there's more junk in there than we thought. The reason I'm saying this is that a lot of people, including myself, when I began practicing, a lot of people are very surprised at how much junk there is in there. And sometimes there's a sense, as it was for me, there's a sense that there's something wrong with me personally, that I am unusually messed up. I have an unusually large amount of junk in my mind, and maybe I should just give up on this path because it's overwhelming. That's an experience that a lot of people, including myself, have had. And so I'm bringing this up to let you know, most people when they move find that they have a lot of junk that they forgot they had. And the fact that you forgot you had it indicates that it is junk, but it doesn't indicate that you don't have it. Yes, you forget about it. That means you don't need it, but that doesn't mean that you don't have it. You still have it even when you don't need it. And the same is true of our thoughts, our useless thoughts, our incorrect thoughts, our meaningless patterns of neurotic fixation. The same is true of our emotional patterns, our emotional reactions that don't apply anymore. Maybe they were relevant at some point, but they're not relevant anymore. We're finished with them. we've even forgotten that we have them, and yet they're still in there. There they are. It turns out they're still there, and we actually have to work through them one by one. It was interesting while we were moving. One of the things that we've learned from our previous move, when we moved from this location to Johnson, was that you have to, in order to correctly assess how much stuff you have to move all of it. You can't remember the stuff that you don't remember that you have. You can't remember those things. Sounds so obvious, it's not even worth saying, but it's worth saying. If you don't remember you have it, then you can't remember that you have it. Did you get that? In the same way, if you can't remember the stuff within ourselves that we don't remember we're carrying around, are the things that we don't remember we're carrying around. Did you get that? A little bit complicated logic, actually. Yes? This isn't, because A equals B is reasonable, but A equals A is actually considered logic. So in this case, A equals A. If we don't remember that we have patterns of thinking or emotions that are functioning in the shadows, then we can't assess them because we can't remember them. So it's necessary to actually move them. So that's what we would do before we pack. We actually moved things into different locations to decide if we want to give this away, throw it away, move it, etc. In the same way, when we go into a meditative practice, we're doing a kind of an assessment. We're observing what comes up. What is coming up? I'm going to follow my breath, and then something comes up. And we think, well, I don't have to deal with that. I dealt with that, or that isn't an issue for me. Whatever. But clearly, here it is. And the challenge at that moment is to not do what I and others have done and think, well, I'm just messed up. This doesn't work for me. But to realize, well, that's why I'm doing this. I opened the closet door in order to find out what's in here so I can deal with it and clean out the closet. So we sit down and we open the heart door. We open the door to our own minds and see what's there. Now, part of what's very important is that we accept it as an opportunity when it turns out that something's there. It's the opportunity to work with that. We can remember that there are people who at least report that they have completely cleaned out the closet. Such a thing is possible. You just deal with it bit by bit. For Peace Pilgrim, it took somewhere between her whole life and 15 years, depending on how you want to count it, to clean out everything. Hey, it takes a while, so we're going to take a while. What else are we going to do with our lives? What would be the better thing to do with our lives than cleaning our own minds? So this is a great opportunity. Here's the thing, I'm going to deal with it, and soon enough, and it might be quite soon, only a few decades, say. It might be a very short period of time, then we clean it all out. So that would be great. One danger, of course, is that we think, oh no, there's all this stuff here that's not worth doing. I'm never going to finish. Why am I doing this at all? Shut the door. Put a chair in front of it. The other possibility, though, is that, which I think is actually more common in the West. What I just said is common. That happened to me. But even more common is that we have a big house and we successfully cleaned out a closet, and it's nice and clean in there. All the stuff that was in there is now out on the floor of the living room. So that's good. And so we just shut ourselves in that nice clean space and think, oh good, I did it. And then we try to enjoy that little space, that little confining, miserable space. It's our private heaven that we've created for ourselves. And this is the way meditation is often used in the West. I'm going to create a nice, peaceful place where I'm going to go and be peaceful and get away from the difficulties of the world and definitely the difficulties of my own mind, of myself. That is not what I wanted. I'm not sitting down in order to deal with things. I deal with things all day long. I'm sitting down in order to not deal with things. That's the point of meditation. So we clear out a little space, and often we even do this in our homes. We make a little clean space where we're going to meditate. Now, it's good to make a little clean space where you're going to meditate. That's good. You just don't want to then put a boundary around that and think the rest of the world doesn't count, or even the rest of my house doesn't count, or even the rest of this room doesn't count. The same way, we don't want to think, well, I've cleaned out a little bit of my mind, the rest of my mind doesn't count. The rest of my heart doesn't count. The rest of my body doesn't count. The rest of my life doesn't count. I'm going to set that aside. Rather than that, each next thing that we have to work through, that we have to deal with. And in that way, meditation shifts dramatically from having the basic tone of being a break, being a relief, being an escape. We even call them meditation retreats. That's even the word we use in English. I'm not sure why. Maybe some of you know why we use that word, but we literally use that word, a meditation retreat. You're going to get away from things. The tone of the practice shifts from that to being an adventure, a journey, a move, a shifting, a constant wonder, a source of confidence and excitement and energy and exhilaration. So it's very important to distinguish. Peaceful, relaxed tone. That's good. You want that. We should start with that. Clean out the closet. It's good. Make a clean closet. Have the sense of peace. It's good. But don't cut it off there, because you can still have that clean closet, clean space, peacefulness in your heart, while dealing with the living room. You don't have to put everything back. You don't have to, when you're clean living room, put it back into the closet. You can keep the closet clean and work through other things. So you have the sense of peace, but you also have a sense of exhilaration. And if you have a sense of peace, then you have the foundation for a practice. If you have the sense of it, and that peace will allow you to move on to exhilaration. If you have a sense of exhilaration with each next thing that arises in our own minds as we go on this journey, if we have that, then it makes it possible for us to shift our lives so that we have the joy. Even joy isn't the right word. We have the I don't know what the word is in English. The happiness, maybe. The happiness? I don't know if we have this. The sukha, the happiness of being able to actually transform how we live. Actually transform the way we live, the way we perceive the world, and the way we behave in the world. Our perception and behavior can shift if we have that sense of energetic exhilaration. If that shifts, then we gain the joy. The right word here is joy, the joy of shamelessness. And shameless doesn't mean you act in bad ways. It means you have to be ashamed of. And when you have that, then you can embark on a meditative path that results in true liberation. So of course, there are many stages, but in the beginning, if we use the metaphor of moving, we want to take each next thing. We may be annoyed that it's in the closet, but there should also be a sense of excitement that we're going to deal with this, that it's been there the whole time. We may be annoyed that we find a pattern within. I thought I dealt with this. I didn't deal with it. It's still in the closet. Now it's rotten, and all these other. Now it's broken, or I don't even know what to do with it anymore. You can have that grumbly, poor me attitude. It's not that you have to get rid of that, but there's also the sense of, well, somebody's got to do this. Somebody's got to deal with this. I'm going to deal with this. And there, in that, there's a sense of being uplifted, of energy. Out of that comes, again, self-confidence, and we're on our way. Until eventually we are truly on the way, as Peace Pilgrim demonstrated for us. So let's take a look. Let's open the closet. Let's take a look in our own minds and do it with a sense of peace, but also with a sense of adventure. Let's begin by creating a clean corner, a peaceful space from which to begin. Straighten your posture and relax your body. And make that your peaceful corner in which to begin. An upright, tall, straight posture that's relaxed, calm, tranquil, and balanced. Attend to the relaxation in your body. You may want to use your breathing in order to hold your attention within the experience of relaxation. And clean out whatever distractions may be pulling you away from that, simply by noticing them and then setting them aside, returning to the relaxation. Now, even as we clean out this little corner, there's already a sense of adventure, of excitement, because there already may be things that we need to move around, set aside, in order to clear away this little space of a tall, calm body that we can pay attention to. There may be tension. We work with that as well as we can. We may not completely resolve it in the same way that we may not have just the corner where we would like to meditate. We may not have exactly the place that we would like to meditate. The kitchen or a heater, there's some noise. People maybe walk by sometimes. Maybe it's near the road, so there's traffic. It may not be exactly what we want, but we're already doing our best to set it up correctly. And in the same way, we're doing our best to set up our bodies. By attending to relaxation and posture. If your attention easily rests on the relaxation in your upright body, and enjoy that. Just enjoy the peace of this little corner of your life. If not, then wonderful. Clean it out. Clean out this little corner. You have to make this corner in the first place by moving things around and cleaning it. Then even after that, it'll get dirty. Dust and dirt will come, and so we have to clean it again. This is the way of things. So take advantage of this opportunity. How? Simply by bringing your attention to relaxation, in your body, as you maintain a tall posture. If your attention goes elsewhere, then set that aside and return to your peaceful corner of your life, upright, relaxed body. Enjoy the peace, the relief, the escape that comes from returning to this cleaned, quiet place. Now, from this place, turn your attention elsewhere. Established little spot, just clean and quiet. But it's possible that even while we were giving ourselves the opportunity to sit there, our minds were already traveling here and there, wanting to work with other materials. Well, this is your opportunity. Turn your attention to what you're thinking about. In particular, turn your attention to whatever words you're hearing in your mind. Now, if you're not hearing any words, then excellent. Just enjoy a clean place that you're in. But if you hear any words, then pick them up. Consider, is this helpful? If it's helpful, then put it away in a good spot. If it's not, then it's okay to discard it. Each time that you find yourself thinking something, listen to it very closely, that you can ascertain, is this a useful possession? Should I keep this? If so, then put it away in a good spot. That means acknowledge the wisdom in it. That's what it means to say, put it away in a good spot. Acknowledge the wisdom in it. Be open to following that wisdom. If it's not helpful, then it's okay to discard it. And it's even okay if it's hard to discard it. We all know from moving, there are things that we have trouble getting rid of, even though we haven't used them in years. We objectively know that they're clutter. And yet it can be hard to get rid of them. So it's okay if it's a struggle to discard your own thoughts and opinions and views. But this is an opportunity to practice doing that. Each next time that you hear nothing, enjoy the peacefulness of that. Each next time you hear something in your mind, your commentary, ideas, any thoughts at all, that's your chance. Listen to it closely, perhaps even repeat it. Repeat it again in order to hear it and assess. Is there wisdom in this that I should keep, or it may have served its purpose at one point, but now it's time to set it aside? In this way, we have the adventure of moving, going on a journey. I'm going to ring the bell, and if you'd like, continue to do this practice while you walk. Walk around the room. You can even walk outside this nice day for a little while. After 5 minutes, we'll begin again. Continue to pay attention to relaxation and quiet in your mind, unless you hear a thought. And then listen to it, perhaps repeating it once or twice, in order to find, is there wisdom here? There's wisdom. Receive that fully and put it away. Put it away in your heart. If not, it's a thought that's irrelevant, used to be useful but isn't anymore. It's okay to set that aside. It's okay to throw it away. And that way, for 5 minutes, continue this while you walk. And as you settle and reestablish upright, calm posture, pay attention not only to the thoughts that you can hear in your mind, but also the images that you imagine in your mind. What do you see in your mind's eye? Perhaps nothing at all. Perhaps your mind is completely blank. If so, enjoy that. Enjoy the restfulness of having no images in your mind. But if images arise, images of people you know or people you don't know, places where you've been or places you haven't been, even perhaps images of yourself as you are or as you aren't. Look at each of those images. Take a look at it and ask, is there wisdom here that's worth keeping? It's a long journey. I can't carry everything. My head is perhaps already quite heavy. It'd be useful to lighten this load a little bit. So if there isn't something useful here, it's best to discard it. So is there? Is there something useful in the images that we look at, sometimes without noticing it, in our minds? This is your chance to notice. Once again, if there are no images, then enjoy that. If there are, then pay attention. Look at the image. Even if you find that it doesn't look the way you thought it did, it may seem very fleeting or empty, wispy, or it may be very gripping and clear. In any case, look at it just as it is and ask, is there wisdom here worth keeping? If so, keep it. If not, it's okay to discard it, to leave it behind. Naturally, if auditory thoughts come up, continue with the same process there as well. Now, add on to that what you're feeling, the emotions that you're feeling. You may not be feeling any. That's fine. You can enjoy that. Enjoy the peacefulness, the relief of that. But as you look around, as you observe your apartment, as you're getting ready to move, in this case, your inner life, look around your inner world as you're preparing to move, you may notice that there are emotions. Now you do feel feelings in your body. If so, feel them. Pay attention to that. What does each one feel like? Where is it? Is it powerful or weak? Is it concentrated or diffuse? Is it stable or is it changing? Pay attention to what each emotion feels like and consider, is this emotion worth keeping? We may feel our emotions are sacred and we may be concerned we don't want to suppress or ignore our emotions, but that's not what's happening here. Our emotions come and go, just like thoughts, just like physical possessions. And it's necessary that each one is allowed to go so the next one can arise fully. To hold on to emotions of the past is actually how we suppress our emotions. And so we feel it fully, and then if it's time, we let it go. We discard it, we throw it away. It may be difficult, but we work through that. Because in the same way that our heads can be heavy, our bodies can feel heavy as well, with emotional baggage. This is our chance to receive the wisdom, if it's present, and put it away in our hearts for later use. This is an opportunity to see wisdom. Maybe an old broken possession, and now it's time to throw it away. So pay attention to your thoughts and your emotions. Moving through this process and enjoying the adventure. And as we come to finish, pay attention in particular to the relief tone of throwing things away, of being free from things. Just like when we're moving, it can be relieving. I've cleaned out an area. I've gotten rid of things. You feel fresh and clear. In the same way, pay attention to that particular tone, that reaction to doing this exercise. As you set aside, throw away, discard your thoughts and emotions, pay attention to the freshness that comes with that. This is a time for discussion or questions, reports, or further silence. Any of it's fine.
In the past, there's been a lot of conversations around sustainability. So the idea of discarding some of the things, the physical things, creates physical space and guilt. Mattresses are a landfill problem. So it almost creates this cycle. If you live in this domestic way we've gotten to this point, our choices going forward can be different.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to figure out what to do with the guilt.
Yeah, and what cycle is it that you're referring to? How would you map out that cycle?
Oh, the joy of getting rid of the mattress
Mm-hmm.
or all the magazines.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kidding myself that I'm getting rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
Just moving them into somebody else's backyard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So while my physical space is clear, then I fill a space in my heart with something called guilt.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's not really a cycle. It's just transforming clutter of one kind into another.
Mm-hmm. So transforming physical clutter into emotional clutter?
Yeah.
But you also mentioned that there's a joy in it. There's something that feels good about throwing it away.
Yeah, but that's kind of
It's not part of the cycle.
not really.
Uh-huh.
It's like I'm not buying it.
Yeah, right. So then you get rid of it, but you know that you're not really getting rid of it, and so you carry that with you. You carry that knowledge and the guilt that comes with it, with you. And therefore, it's not satisfying. Is that the point that you're making? It's not therefore satisfying to throw things away?
Part of it. Well, it doesn't seem like I'm actually throwing anything away. All energy is energy. If it's physical stuff that is clutter or emotional stuff that is clutter, I have not liberated myself, in fact.
And how would you do that? How might you do that in the case of, say, just in the mattress? How might that happen? So that
How
you
could
could.
a futon,
Yes, a futon.
wool core, cotton, linen over the top, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. The planet can handle that.
So that could go into landfill without as much guilt. Is that the point you're making?
Yeah.
But other things.
Plastic. Coated magazines.
Things that aren't going anywhere for a long time. I'll just sit there. Yep. So it doesn't sound like there's a clear solution to that problem.
No, I don't. But it leads to the question of what to do with any guilt.
But that's a slightly different problem. Let's talk about the emotional clutter in a moment.
Okay.
Doesn't sound like we currently have a solution to the physical clutter.
Mm-hmm.
If you buy it, then you're going to feel guilty eventually. That's the point you're making.
Yeah.
You're either going to be ignorant or feel that way, right? Those are your two options. Because some people, or do you feel that everyone probably has that guilt?
No, unfortunately.
Okay, so then you're either going to be ignorant, you're going to ignore the reality of your choices on the one hand, or you'll know that and you'll feel bad. That once you buy something, those are your two options. Is that what you're saying?
For me now,
Uh-huh.
it's not. The difficult moment is not when I decide to buy something, because I make my decisions differently now than I did 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
When I am trying to discard things that I made fairly unconsciously 10 years ago, that is.
Good, so then there is a solution for the future. And that's a big deal. It's actually highly significant. I think it's better that we have to receive the consequences of our past choices. That's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. It's better than as you say, being ignorant and making somebody else bear the consequences. So we make decisions, and then we have to work with that. We may feel bad, but that's just part of it. That's how it goes. When we make a mistake, then we pay the price later. Oh, that's okay. I don't see a problem with that personally. But that isn't exactly good news, though. The good news is that you have a path going forward, which is be more careful about how. So that's highly significant. Again, to bring it back to Peace Pilgrim, she said, those who do not know suffer. The ignorant group suffers, right? But those who know and don't act according to that, suffer even more. And this is, I think, correct. It's a reason that it's hard for us to live the spiritual life, because there are 3 stages. You're ignorant, you're doing things wrong and you're ignorant of it. You're doing things wrong and you know about it, you're aware of that. And then finally, you're doing things well, which is what you're saying, the path that you're on now. You're moving in that direction, which is something to rejoice in, and there is something to rejoice there. It's very important to rejoice in that. But you'll notice that if we have level of suffering, yes, or maybe level of happiness, let's do level of happiness, there's this not much happiness with ignorance, very little happiness when you realize that you have to live differently, which you don't know. And then eventually, which is the stage that I'd recommend that you enter. Because looking at your face, you may not have fully entered it yet. I think it's very important to rejoice. Otherwise, we don't have any motivation, our bodies anyway, don't have any motivation to get through this sad period when we don't know how to do it yet, but we know we have to do it differently. That's a time of despair. And so we need something to carry us through that. And as I say, that's a reason that it's hard to live the spiritual life. If it was just one clear path up, everyone would be virtuous and enlightened. But it doesn't work that way. There's a sadness and a despair that comes first for, well, everyone that I know of, honestly. I don't know of any exceptions to this. So maybe someone can tell me an exception, but I don't know of any, not even one exception. That first, there's knowledge and less happiness than there was with the ignorance, and then we say ignorance was bliss. I wish I was still ignorant. But you don't, because something within us knows that there is a way to deal with this. And once we do, then we have a kind of happiness that's greater than when we were ignorant. So it was worth it in the end. The way, again, Peace Pilgrim put it, she said, while you're on the path, it feels hard. But once you finish the path and you look back, you ask, how could something so wonderful come so easily? So this happiness is so much better that you look back and think, how could this much happiness come with that little suffering? How could it have been this easy? It's really, that's the perspective that she says we come to in the end. The issue for a lot of us is that we get attached to the guilt and we feel like there's some kind of inherent value in this suffering. And so we don't go and rejoice in the progress that we have made. And since we actually actively block happiness and the self-confidence, we don't make it through. So we don't have the energy to continue on, to continue up this beautiful mountain. That's a real problem. It's a problem for 2 reasons. It's a problem because then we get stuck, because we don't think we deserve to be happy. We think the guilt has some kind of inherent use. It has conditional use, but it doesn't have any inherent use. And also other people see us. They say, well, here's this virtuous, ethical person who's not that happy, so I'm going to try to stay in my ignorant state as long as possible. So there's a great value in rejoicing in our spiritual success, in our ethical success. We should feel happy about that. I don't have to be ashamed anymore of what I used to be. So I should be much happier than I used to be. That should be something we feel, but unfortunately, I think it's something that we actively block, and so we have to actively cultivate it. It's a natural process, but I think we actively block it. So that's the first thing. That's the first point. Does all that make sense so far? Though before we move on, I just want to repeat it. It seems like you have an answer. If I'm not mistaken, you said earlier that you didn't know of one. But there actually is an answer for the future.
For the future?
Yeah, but the past is the past. We did that. You can't change what you did in the past. That's the whole definition of the past, actually. That's the definition of the past. You do different things. The things you can't change are the part that you call the past.
And that I understand. It's reconciling my present with what I did in the past.
Yeah, right.
The game of,
right.
Okay, so what I did in the past is past.
Yeah.
And now I transform the stuff to guilt.
Yeah, right. Right. Although, and I guess this is the second point, which is it sounds like you're the guilt should come naturally. Yes? You shouldn't transform it. You shouldn't be active in that. You should just feel guilty.
Yeah.
So that's perfect. Just feel bad and receive that totally in the way we did with the exercise. Is there a wisdom there? And it sounds like there is a wisdom there. So receive that wisdom. And once you've learned it, then the guilt is no longer needed. And then you can practice throwing it away. If you haven't learned the lesson yet, then great, keep on engaging the guilt. Keep on enjoying the wisdom that comes with that guilt. Buddha himself said that sense of guilt is the most important protector of the world. So we talk about what protects the world, yes? Well, maybe social structure of the world. Maybe, but not very well. Maybe gods protect the world. Well, maybe, but not that well. What really protects the world, according to the Buddha, is that we feel shame and guilt about what we've done, and that we dread continuing doing that. So shame and dread, hiri and ottappa, are two of the most important feelings in Buddhism, taken to be two of the most mature and beautiful human emotions, shame and dread. So it's a very different way of looking at things than the way we often look at things. Because we often don't consider that I have shame, and therefore I have dread, and therefore I'll mature so that I no longer need to dread. I know now how to live, so I won't do that anymore. So now I don't need that. And there's a sense of excitement about getting to that place. And there was the mistake that I made, but I've done what I could, and I can be proud of to resolve that, right? I made a mistake, and now I've done what I needed to do in order to deal with that mistake. So now I can be proud of that. So again, to look at it from a Buddhist perspective, the underlying emotions of shame and dread are a sense of respect for others and confidence in ourselves. Those are the fundamental emotions that underlie shame and dread. Yes? But respect for others and confidence in ourselves feel good. And so we're excited about getting to the point when we can feel shame and dread. Yes, we're here, shame and dread, and then magnificent life. But if we get attached to this is what I'm saying, this is the second point, that I think we often we think that there's an inherent value in guilt, and so we actively produce it. We act our physical possessions into emotional guilt. But we don't need to. That's the good news. You'll just naturally feel bad when you make a mistake. You'll just automatically suffer. And that's great news. You know? Because it means that you don't need to make yourself suffer at all. You should just sit down and receive all of the suffering from all of the mistakes you've ever made. You don't have to make any more suffering. It's a really good structure of our hearts. We're very wise in that way. And so you just feel terrible about all the mistakes you've made. Don't make yourself feel terrible at all. Just feel it. And once you've felt it fully, then you'll receive the wisdom in it, and then you live differently. The issue is twofold. One, we either want to suppress it, we don't want to feel bad, refuse to feel the bad feelings that are actually there from the mistakes that we've actually made. That means that we'll make no spiritual progress. That's a horrifying proposition. Those people who have moved on this path and are climbing this now look back with terror and think, how could I be so lucky that how could I have been the lucky one who was willing to go through that? I mean, we have friends who are smarter than us and better than us in every way, and they haven't. They're still living in that horror of ignorance. Well, this joy that comes, how long will it be before they experience it? Who knows? Maybe never. But I get to experience it today. How could I be the lucky one? Who knows? We just feel grateful because we were willing to feel that guilt, that horror of what we've done. Yes? So that's one mistake we can make, not with being willing to feel bad for the mistakes we've made. But the other mistake, which is almost as bad, because it means that rather than taking 0 steps on the path, we'll take only 1, is, oh, good, I feel bad. That has value. Feeling bad is useful in itself. I should suffer. If I'm suffering, then I'm good. If I feel guilty, then then I'm doing something. At least I feel bad. I'm going to get attached. We often get attached. So one is ignore. The others get attached to the guilt, to the bad feelings. If we get attached to them and attribute to them some kind of inherent value, then we take 1 step into the shame and dread, and then we stop there. What we want to do is take that and allow it to motivate us to make a change. And once we've made the change, which it sounds like you have in many ways, then it's very important that we rejoice in that. And we discover then that the joy is actually more effective at changing our lifestyle than even the shame and dread. And that's extremely exciting. Not so much because, okay, good, now I get to be happy from now on, although that's good. Of course, that's really good. Everywhere, that's what people want. I want to be happy from now on. Well, good news, this is a way you can be happy. But even better than that, we're compassionate, and we realize I have an even better way. That's amazing. I have an even better way to live a good life. And that's actually the goal. I want to make the world a better place. So it turns out that joy achieves that better. And that's why it's so exciting, because we have something that's even more effective than guilt. So having any attachment to it, rather than avoiding the bad feelings, rather than getting attached to it, don't avoid them, feel them, but then use that as a jumping off point, as a springboard, yes, as a springboard to jump into joy, to jump into feeling increasing self-confidence. And that is itself a kind of a skill. But in order to do that, we have to be willing to not feel guilty, to just be willing to not feel guilty. Does all that make sense so far?
Well, we got to the very end, and I was I thought I was just going to move through guilt. It comes up quite naturally, which I'm very excited about. I don't have to force guilt on myself. It's there.
Yeah, exactly.
So you just move. But then at the very end, I think you said not allowing yourself to feel guilty. But I thought moving through it.
I don't know about not. We have this recorded. We can check to see. I don't recall. I think there's something like it. But I think there's a significant difference between saying not allowing yourself to feel guilty and being willing to not feel guilty.
Oh, that's what you said. You're right.
So being willing to not feel guilty is totally different from avoiding guilt. You're just willing to not feel guilty.
Okay. So and you have to be willing to not feel guilty in order to move through it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. You get stuck in it.
Yeah.
So you're either not willing to feel it or you're not willing to not feel it.
I mean, you could start with
Yeah.
just experiencing it fully.
Yeah, right.
That feeling, you just feel it.
Exactly.
Let it happen without expecting that anything.
Right. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, that's a great way to do it. You just experience it fully. Sit there with it. Yeah. And it is impermanent. Its life will run its course and it will die.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a very powerful mechanism for social change. Because I do think that in modern times we associate in a way that is very strange, but I do think it's true. We associate ethical, caring people with people who are kind of depressed and anxious. And that's too bad because that is part of it. You will feel bad. There are terrible things happening in the world and we're doing a lot of them. And that's something to feel terrible about. But that can't be the end of the story. That has to be the beginning of the story. That's true. It's the first chapter of the spiritual life, despair. But it's not the last chapter. It's not even the second chapter. And we want people to know that. But you get someone like Peace Pilgrim who's happy all the time and lives his perfect life and never makes and we try to fake it, we try to just act the way she did. And that's very dangerous. You can't do it. It's actually more exciting, it's really exciting to go through the hard part. That's the part that will really that will really appreciate that. That's the part that will really inspire the world, I believe. To go through it and to get through it. And people can watch us do that.
Labor. It's childbirth.
Right. Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. It's a good metaphor, I think.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm pretty sure it's a good metaphor. My sister actually just a few days ago had a child.
Oh.
Gave birth. And so having been a part of that, it seems similar.
Yeah.
Seems similar.
You're right there.
Yeah. And then something else happens that is not labor. Really different. Something else. This person happens. Well, that's different. His own thing, with his own mind. Maybe not. He doesn't quite have his own mind yet. He's working on his mind. He seems pretty young for a mind.
Yeah, let's hope.
Yeah, the older kid who's 2.5, he has a mind. He really has some feelings about things. He knows how he wants things. But this little guy, who's the same number of days old as his brother is years old, he doesn't seem to have a lot of opinions yet. I'm not seeing them anyway. He has preferences, but not opinions. Oh, interesting. Oh, well, it's time. Look at that. Oh, good question. Long answer. Now, are we finished with that?
We are, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So this is a time when we can talk about ways to benefit the world. We talked about one just now, which is an economic solution. How we purchase things is an economic solution to ethical problems. There may be other solutions, of course. There are political solutions, social solutions, personal solutions. So this is a time to talk about anything at all that you've learned about that we can do to make the world a better place this week. Yes?
So I've got a few things for us. If you haven't heard already, in the emails we send out, on the very bottom, there's a link to all of the events that I currently have listed. If you want more information on them, you can go on the link and read about it. And please add your own onto the document. You click on it and you can edit it and add your own information. So that would be great for everybody. So Tuesday, there's a few interesting things coming up. One of them is there's the Showing Up for Racial Justice, a general monthly meeting in Burlington at the UU Church. That is Tuesday from 6 to 8. And Surge is it's for white people working to organize white people to work on racial justice issues. There's also a Decolonize Your Mind event honoring the Abenaki people on the same day. That's in Montpelier from 6:30 to 10:30 p.m. And this is a potluck, there's storytelling, a ceremony, live music, and it's also a fundraiser. More information on the document. Wednesday night, there's a Take Back the Night rally, and this is a march from the UVM campus to Church Street. And a rally in our efforts to fight against sexual violence. Songs, poems, and speakers. Thursday, Amy Goodman is coming from Democracy Now! She'll be speaking at the UU Church as well, talking about her new book. And then Saturday, there's the climate marches. A few of us are going to DC. If you're still thinking about going and you're wondering about buses, carpools, housing in DC for very cheap or free, you can come talk to me. I have some information on that. Otherwise, Montpelier from 1 to 4. And there's also information on here about, in the link, you can find carpools and more information on that as well. So,
Did you describe the purpose of those marches?
the climate marches?
No.
Yeah, so my understanding of it is it's similar to the Women's March in that they're taking all the energy since Trump was elected, all the various causes, and working to move forward in this energy, but this is now focused on the climate. This is at the end of Trump's first 100 days, so it's looking to make that big statement at this point.
Great, thank you. Mm-hmm.
There's some vigils going on this week to support healing in South Burlington because of the threats and lockdowns that happened, and just supporting healing around that. And Lamarad Owens is also coming this coming weekend. There's a talk Friday night and retreat or something Saturday and Sunday morning. There's 3 different events, so there's just some interesting opportunities to keep learning and growing.
Great. Could you, if you have any specific information about that, could you put it into that document?
Mm-hmm.
It would be helpful, I think, to know exactly, but if not, then we can all search for it ourselves. Good. Anything else? Great. Well, let's also just not buy something Yes? Not have to throw it away later on. Good. Well, it's good to see all of you, and it'll be wonderful to see you at the new location in Lowell. Please come anytime, have a meal with us, or we have a lot of rooms right now. So stay over, bring a friend, and soon enough we'll be telling you about retreats that you can come to for the next over this remainder of this year. Good to see you.
We'll also be chanting at 7:15 for 10 minutes.